Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, January 28th regular City Commission meeting for the City of Henderson. If you would, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have a call for attendance, please?
Commissioner Hargis.
Present.
Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
Commissioner Pruitt.
Here.
Commissioner Witt.
Here.
Mayor Staten.
Here. First up, in July of last year, the city started a monthly awards program called the Community Spotlight Award. And we have two recipients of our Community Spotlight Award who are very deserving this month. And when I say two, I mean 40, it looks like we've got in attendance. So Ms. Jessa is going to read the description from both of those. Then we'll have you come up and join us for a picture. We're going to say a few words, and then I believe Brad Bickett and Brian Williams are going to have some words after that. So Ms. Jessa.
For the January Community Spotlight, the City of Henderson is proud to recognize two wonderful groups of individuals. First, we want to take a moment to celebrate the incredible efforts of Henderson Municipal Power and Light Team for their outstanding work during the recent winter weather. In the face of freezing temperatures, snowy and icy conditions, the linemen and other dedicated team members worked tirelessly to restore power to our community. They ventured into unfavorable conditions, often driving ice-covered roads to ensure homes, businesses, and critical services stayed connected to electricity. To our linemen and everyone behind the scenes who supported their efforts, your hard work did not go unnoticed. On behalf of the City of Henderson, we are proud to honor your team with the January Community Spotlight. The second group we are honoring today is our dedicated City of Henderson Public Works team. In times of extreme weather, they often work behind the scenes to keep the city running smoothly. From clearing the snow and ice on the roads, ensuring our streets are safe for travel, to collecting sanitation throughout it all, they went above and beyond in every way. Their efforts not only ensured the safety of our residents, but also helped to minimize the disruption caused by the storm, allowing our community to recover as quickly as possible. The critical role they play in keeping our city roads salted and plowed during the winter weather does not go unnoticed. On behalf of the City of Henderson, thank you for your hard work, and we are grateful to have you on our team.
I can have the Henderson Municipal Power and Light folks join me on this side of the stage, and I can have our Public Works folks join me on this side of the stage.
Did we have a tug of war or something? Money's going on Hempel.
Let me tell you one thing, the people of Henderson appreciate both of them for what they did. Getting that utilities back on, cleaning up stuff off the streets and off the lines and yards and you name it. It was, people call me, "Mine's the utilities off." I said, "Ain't nothing I can do." I said, "Mine's off too. Mine's off too."
I love Barbara being in the back because you're so tall.
Okay, are we
Got
ready?
everybody, or do we need to
Yes.
squeeze in
No,
more?
we're good.
Okay.
All right, 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna take a couple. All right, we're good.
All right. You all can hold on to those, and what we're gonna do is, if you all would, if you would return to your seats, I'm sure each member of the commission would like to say something to you guys. And then we'll have Brad and Brian come up and say a few more words too. I just wanted to, before I go back to my seat, thank all of you for coming in. We get tons of calls, and we got tons of calls all throughout the storm. And you guys were so responsive, and I can't tell you how many compliments that the citizens of Henderson gave on behalf of themselves to you through us.
about the amazing job that you did restoring power or keeping up with services. Public Works was especially challenged that week. We had an extra fire that you all donated or services to, and in addition to the roads, you did the debris. You guys coordinated tons of services through HMPNL with different linemen who were in town to help you with your jobs, working 16-hour shifts for like several days in a row, and I can't tell you how appreciative we are. But let me get back up there. If you all would, please feel free to return to your seats, and then we want to just say a few words of encouragement to you guys before you leave, if you don't mind. All right, while they're getting the podium put back together, I'm going to start over here with Commissioner Hargis. Commissioner Hargis, would you like to say a few words on behalf of you and the city to the people who we have in attendance with us today?
I would. Again, just a huge thank you guys to all that you did. You know, I know those are harsh conditions out there, and we thank you for taking those on and keeping our community warm and safe. And you guys did it very quickly and very professionally, and we are just so lucky to have you. So thank you again.
I too just want to thank you guys. But one thing I do know, I was out there because my utilities was off. I went down the street and I came upon some people I didn't recognize. They were from a different city, and they was on this end, and Hempel was on this end, and they was stringing new wire, and it was freezing rain. And they up there, and if you know a little bit about electricity, probably ain't the greatest place you want to be in freezing rain. And you guys done a great job. And sanitation, other cities under these kind of circumstances, they've stopped the whole week, maybe a week and a half. You guys may have missed one day, and you kept going. Like you said, elected officials, we get a lot of calls, especially when your utilities go off in the middle of the winter. We're going to get a lot of calls. And you guys done a great job fixing it. And they told me to tell you, thank y'all, because they remember, what was it, 2011? 2009. They remember that one, and they were really appreciative that you guys got the power back on as quick as you did. So they said thank you.
Buzzy, you want to say a couple things?
Again, I can say we appreciate all the preparedness that Hempel puts into their plans when events like this happen. And you can't always predict what will happen, and I think it's fair to say in '09, Hempel didn't have near the problems that they had this go around. And I want to echo what Commissioner Pruitt said about our sanitation guys. Y'all ought to be proud that y'all were back on the job, and a surrounding city suspended trash service for almost a week. That just speaks to the commitment. And then the last thing is our public works guys who are driving the snow plows, who are cleaning trees up out of the roadway in order for emergency services. And they supported Hempel as well. So kudos not to only the workers, but their supervisors. And I also want to mention 911. Assisted in every way to handle all the phone calls for all the power outages that got reported, and Jordan's efforts to work with Brad Bickett to make sure that everybody was accounted for. So thanks, Jordan, as well, and her crew.
Commissioner Thomas?
Number one, I couldn't believe when I got out that morning that streets were clear. Most of the main thoroughfares were clear, which is unbelievable with that ice. Thank you for that. And I drove around and limbs down everywhere. The next day, limbs are all gone out of the streets. So it's just, we're sitting in enjoying a cocktail in front of the fireplace. You guys are out there busting your butt, making us safe. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Witt?
I was chasing kids around not enjoying a cocktail, but
I'm past that.
but no, I mean, in all seriousness, tremendous effort by everybody. I think Buzzy summarized it pretty well in terms of all the different entities that were involved. And I know, even for the water department, I know there was a lot of water mains that kind of gave way and other things. It was just, sometimes we get some very unpleasant calls, and even people that had sat without power for days seemed incredibly grateful for all the hard work. And as they sit up here, you compare us to other communities, which you can't help but to do. And it seems like at a time when we were tried pretty hard, it seems like our people here did better than any other communities. So that greatly appreciated. Thank
They
you.
are better. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Better.
You were prepared, you were responsive, you were appreciated. Two quick stories. There was one night, the first or second night when all the power started going out, that I called Brad Bickett probably about 10 p.m., something like that, inappropriately late. And I didn't expect him to answer, and he did. And furthermore, he was still working, just like all of you guys. And number two, just wanted to say thank you to our Public Works team. Buzzy and Commissioner Pruitt brought up that you only missed a day, and honestly, if it was up to the department itself, the sanitation crew itself, you wouldn't have missed any days. We made the decision 9 p.m. the day before you missed to go ahead and cancel trash because of the ice and because we were worried about people getting their containers down to the road. We were worried about you guys too. But if it was up to you, I think you would have worked that day and proudly worked. David Steele told me at 8:30 that we're going to make that decision when they come in the morning. I'm sure that decision would have been it's a go. And so I know that you were at the ready, and if we didn't stand in your way, you wouldn't have missed a single day. And so we really appreciate all the efforts that you guys had. Brian Williams, you want to come up and tell us a little bit more about who we've got here from the Public Works Department?
I'll keep it brief, but you've got to recognize most of them, but I just want a show of hands.
If you could aim your voice at the microphone so people can hear
Show
you.
of hands. So any of you that are here with sanitation, either stand up or raise your hand so we can recognize you, so that the commission can see who you are. These are a few of our sanitation workers. The rest of them, they have All right, and now I got a group from the street department. For those that did snow plows and cleared debris, stand up for that, please. And I don't want to forget our garage mechanics, because when we have events like this and we have, stand up, fellas. So when we have events like this and we have equipment out, we have to have someone there that'll be ready to repair our equipment so we can get back out on the road. So these guys put in a lot of time working on trucks as needed. So they do a really good job. We should be proud of what we have.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Mayor and Commission, I don't know if it's possible, but all things are possible. I think this whole group deserves some kind of dinner later on, maybe not now, later on this coming summer or something. I think what you guys did, it's your job, but it's different. You guys put in beyond your job, and you were there. Like, I seen the snow plows come up down my street, and maybe 4 hours later, here he come again. Like you said, they got it done. I don't know if we can do that, but I think we can. So I'll just let the commission think about it.
So I'll kind of give you an answer based on legal, because we've had similar conversations before. If I'm not mistaken, we can't fund it with taxpayer dollars to do that, but it is something to where the commission itself, on its own volition, could donate some money toward a dinner later on.
We can work out a deal.
Yeah, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I know a guy.
I think we'll talk about it. You deserve it.
It's an important time to bring up the fact, too, that we're recognizing 2 departments, and really we could recognize 6 or 7 or 8, police and fire and 911 and all kinds of people, EMA, and we're out there helping with a storm. And so I don't want anyone to feel shortchanged if you didn't get. Honestly, we do have the fire department represented very well here today, and one of the concerns we have is fire code. So if we had double the amount of people in here, it wouldn't be legal. And so we'll definitely find a way to honor you all
Yes.
throughout the course of this year, but I don't want you to feel underappreciated. Your efforts are appreciated as well. Brad Bickett, can you give us a little bit of an idea of who we have from Hempel?
Yes, an honor for me to brag on the team at Henderson Power and Light. So the focus for the folks that are here is operations supporting electric. But we've got 50 people on our team, and I want to emphasize that everybody on the team, pulls together in situations like what we had with the ice storm. So certainly want to first and foremost recognize our linemen. So we've got most of our 14 linemen here. I want you all to stand up, all the linemen first. So in addition to these guys, we had 17 linemen from out of town from 6 different cities in Indiana that came in to help us. And like you said earlier, they worked 16-hour shifts, and we didn't stop. From the time that things started happening at 3:30 on Sunday on January 5th through Friday, and then through the weekend, kind of fixing some things that had been temporary, we worked basically around the clock. So we also have our engineering technicians. I'd like for you all to stand. Jones, Matthew Greer. These guys support the linemen in day in, day out with projects. Also, we don't have our dispatch folks here, but they also were key, and they communicate with the linemen and the crews to figure out where to go and how to handle things. And they're the point of contact for 911 as well. So very much appreciative of them. I also want to recognize some of our staff that came. You may not know this, so we've got 2 phones in dispatch, but whenever you have a storm, we can turn it over to where all our phones ring, and everybody becomes call center operators. So first I'll say Human Resources Director Tammy Consular in the back. Tammy has been very key in coordinating with mutual aid, making sure we have food, and it's incredibly important that we have food for these guys. I'll tell you, they go through quite a bit, especially when they're working 16 hours. So thank you, Tammy. Barbara Mall, our Chief Financial Officer, she's also been heavily involved with FEMA, capturing off for the record of all our costs. Aaron Spence, Power Supply Director, she was extremely helpful through the ice storm with managing different things, logistics and phones and that kind of thing. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the fact that we didn't have any safety issues, no accidents. And Ray Nix is here. He's our Safety and Facilities Director. Ray Nix appreciates his efforts throughout the thing to kind of monitor the situation. And make sure I didn't leave anybody. Brian Hardesty, Chief Technology Officer. Our meter department. We have 2 guys in our meter departments, Chase and Jake. They basically were heavily involved, especially when it gets to the secondary services, the damage to the houses where the service is connected. So we're very much appreciative of their work. And I think that's everybody. Ted Kitzman, he's our new Director of Telecommunications. He's been promoted from Fiber Manager, and he's over our fiber department. So we have our fiber technicians that are not here today, but they were also involved in helping where they could. We managed very well on the fiber side, so not a lot of issues, and really proud of the team and really proud to add value as a partner to the city. So we want to continue to do that, and thank you for the recognition.
All right. Well, God bless all of you, and I'll tell you, as we pulled through this very successfully out of a bad situation, you all remind the entire community of what it means to live in Henderson, and how closely tied in we are to each other and how much we care about each other in this community, and we just can't say enough of how much we appreciate you guys. We're going to move on to regular business. You certainly do not have to stick around for that part if you do not wish to. But again, on behalf of the City Commission, we just wanted to thank you for all of your efforts. We appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's up, Dan? How long you been with the city now? All right. I got you. There you go. 2 years. How you doing? All right.
There you go.
Get it.
There you go.
We like that.
When you're 15, if you're interested in being a lifeguard at the pool, you let us know.
We need some swimmers. Thank y'all.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, good to see you.
All right, we'll give it about 30 more seconds, and then we'll get started on our business.
Evansville said we ain't picking up nothing. We ain't picking up for a week.
All right, first up on today's agenda, we have a consent agenda.
The consent agenda consists of the minutes of the January 14th, 2025 regular meeting, Resolution 10-25 approving Human Resources Report dated January 28th, 2025, Resolution 11-25, resolution updating the Henderson Emergency Services Wrecker Service Agreement for any wrecker service that desires to be added to the rotation list maintained by the Henderson Emergency Communications Center.
All right, before we get a motion to approve, are there any items that any commissioner would like to pull off the consent agenda for further discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve, please.
Moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hargis.
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas.
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt.
Aye.
Commissioner Witt.
Aye.
Dayton.
Aye. Next up, we have a second reading of an ordinance amending, accepting public improvements for Jimmy John.
Ordinance number 1-25, ordinance accepting public improvements. An ordinance accepting public improvements consisting of sidewalks and curb and guttering on Reddick Road.
We have a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Second.
We have one of those said first and one of them said second. Do we have any comments, questions, suggestions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hargis.
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas.
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt.
Aye.
Commissioner Witt.
Aye.
Mayor Staten.
Aye. For the next portion of this agenda, I am going to recuse myself and ask that Commissioner Hargis oversee the next item. And if you would, just wait till I get out of the room.
Y'all are really throwing it at me first like that.
Here we are. We need to
Really?
close the door.
Yep.
You hadn't beat us so bad in the election.
Touche, touche. Okay, so next, we have an ordinance regarding the annexation of 634 Glenwood Dale and 656 South Glenwood Dale.
Ordinance number 2-25, ordinance regarding annexation. An ordinance annexing certain unincorporated territory to the city of Henderson, Kentucky, located in Henderson County, being the real properties addressed as 634 Glenwood Dale Drive, parcel ID 64B-35, consisting of approximately 1.8365 acres, and 656 South Glenwood Dale, parcel ID number 64B-36, consisting of approximately 0.9183 acres.
A motion,
So
motion
moved.
to approve.
Yep, so moved.
Second.
All right, discussion?
The only thing I would say is I know there's been some talk about it, and obviously the mayor's recused himself from voting. I just want to be clear that what we're voting on is pretty much what anybody has a legal right to do. Anybody that would like to willingly subject themselves to paying taxes for the city and expand our tax base, I think we would be crazy to say that we wouldn't want them to be part of the city. I think, obviously, I understand that some people in the neighborhood perhaps are concerned that this could be a slippery slope and could lead to, the city trying to annex the entire neighborhood. And I can tell you there's been absolutely zero discussion of that, and I think there'd be absolutely zero discussion in the future regarding that. And maybe you could put the zero in all caps, Vince, because I don't think there's any discussion at all regarding that. And Dawn, if I could ask, I know that in terms of like when Big Creek and some other things were annexed, that was a different scenario, right? So I mean, in terms of this, like there's no way we could just willingly go in and say, hey, you're going to be part of the city tomorrow morning without approval and things of that nature, right?
So there's two ways that cities can annex. Cities can consensual annex. And that's what, in all the time I've been here, every annexation we've done has
Right.
been consensual. Even Bent Creek was consensual because the developers,
Sure.
when they started to develop that property, signed consent for the annexation because they wanted the water. So, so all we've always done in my tenure and in Buzzy's tenure is consensual.
Right.
There is a way to do non-consensual annexation, but no one uses it anymore.
Right.
Because if a city wants to to annex property that it doesn't have consent for, then they have to pay for an election. There has to be an election, and all the property owners there have the right to vote for or against it. And then, 50%, 51% couldn't do it. But cities don't do that anymore because you have to pay for an election, and if you don't think that you're going to get it annexed, you just, most cities. So non-consensual annexation is pretty rare in this day and age. And like I said, I don't foresee the city, and I'm sure during Robert's time, he's the longest serving, there's ever been a non-consensual annexation. I think it was, if Marie were here, she could give you
And
where
who
it
it was,
was.
too.
But I think that it was back in the 60s or the 70s. Do you think that's right, Buzzy? The last one? It may have been the 60s.
Annexations, most of what has occurred probably since the 70s has to do with most of the ground that's located on 60 West
Yeah,
and
that's
involves
cool.
industrial development.
And you cannot non-consent industrial. So,
Yeah, no, I appreciate you explaining that. I mean, I just wanted to be clear, because I get, right, if you live in the community, perhaps would be concerned. I don't want to discount those concerns, but I also think it's important that they understand legally how that would work and that nobody from the city is coming to try to take the entire
Yeah,
neighborhood.
anybody's got the right to do that if they're bordering
City.
county border.
Right.
So, I served 7 years on the planning commission. I think it's only happened twice, times, only one annex. That I can recall. This is nothing undermined. I mean, it's not being railroaded in or right any citizen.
Yeah, when you got a citizen that wants to get their property annexed for whatever reason, we've always granted it.
Him to get the taxes.
Any further discussion? Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hargis,
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas,
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt,
Aye.
Commissioner Witt.
Aye.
I don't tell him.
Just leave them out there.
Just leave him out there.
On to the next
Keep
man.
going, Kelsey.
Good job. I can't remember when Oh, yeah,
Oh, have
yeah.
All right. Moving on to municipal orders. We have a municipal order awarding a contract for replacing playground equipment.
Municipal Order 6-25, municipal order accepting proposal of Miracle Recreation of Kentucky and Tennessee, Litchfield, Kentucky, for community park playground replacement in the amount of $86,191.80.
We have a motion to approve, please.
No move.
We have a second.
Second.
We have any questions, comments, or suggestions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hargis, Commissioner Thomas,
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt,
Aye.
Commissioner Witt,
Aye.
Mayor Staten.
Aye. Next up, we have a municipal order awarding a bid for the purchase of installation of sports complex.
Municipal Order Number 7-25, municipal order awarding bid for fabrication and installation of a Henderson Sports Complex entrance monument with electronic message board to Custom Sign and Engineering Incorporated of Newburgh, Indiana, in the amount of $54,751.
Do we have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions, suggestions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hargis, Commissioner Thomas.
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt,
Aye.
Commissioner Witt,
Aye.
Mayor Staten.
Aye. Next up, we have a municipal order for the purchase of a new fire pumper.
Municipal Order Number 8-25, municipal order approving purchase of a 2027 Pierce Enforcer pumper for the Henderson Fire Department from Atlantic Emergency Solutions of Manassas, Virginia, through Sourcewell Contract Number 113021-OKC in the amount of $982,621.48.
Do we have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions?
Could I speak a moment
Please
to
do.
what we're doing? I'm going to ask the chief and deputy chief to come to the podium, but I think they can explain why we're doing what we're doing, if y'all don't mind to come on up. And then at the tail end of their discussion, I want to mention how we have to fund this purchase.
So just a little bit of history or back history on it is that you all know that we currently have a pumper on order with Atlantic Emergency Solutions now, which it's due to be August of 2026. So anything we order, we know it's almost a 3-year wait. And currently we have 2 reserve engines that are 1999s, and NFPA recommendation for a frontline engine is 15 years. Reserve engines at 20, so they're at the point where we need to decommission them. And just to give you an example, like the fire that we had last night, we had to have engine 5 as a standby crew. So we're still actively using these reserve engines. Anytime we get one of our frontline engines goes down, whether it's being annual maintenance, semi-maintenance, and then standby for fires. I mean, we're using them all the time. And when we talk to the mechanics around here that actually work on these reserve engines, they're like, look, we've done almost all we can do. When we weld doors, we can barely get the doors to shut. So, I mean, that's the condition in some of these 299s that we've got. Going back to the bid process on this, when we sat down with the city manager and assistant city manager, and also with Ms. Mills, we talked about how can we make this process a little bit quicker. And you know how we normally bid stuff out and it takes months. So we chose that they were with Sourcewell. So that's a corporate purchasing program that allows us to use pre-negotiated contracts that are competitive. And the benefits from that is it cuts down on our bid process, and it also, with the new emission standards that are coming out, if we move on it now before February, we'll probably save $50,000 to $60,000. So that's a big benefit for us. Other than that, I'm going to let him talk a little bit about the contract. There's some verbiage in there that was in question about the producer's price index, which it talks about a 5% that you could get a surcharge, which the contract that we signed in 2023 was the exact same verbiage, but he can go a little bit about it and how that, if it came to that, how it would affect us.
So there's Section 3 of our contract has a clause called persistent inflationary environment. Talking to our salesperson from Atlantic, just to get some clarification of what that means. Basically, 14 months from the truck being ready for pickup, if you back up 14 months, they basically analyze what that truck's going to cost them to build. If the inflation price is less than 5%, Pierce eats the cost. If it's over 5%, then the city commission will have the option to back out of that contract at no cost or to meet whatever the price is increase above 5%.
Having said that, every manufacturer has it in there as that clause as a contract. And in talking with our rep, I did ask, I said, well, how many times? I said, we got nailed with Seagrave, and it was left a pretty sour taste in the commission's mouth. And I said, we really want to be cautious with moving forward. And he said, it was like twice, which one was the Great Depression and one was COVID. So, you know, they know in 3 years they don't know what the future's going to bring, but I feel comfortable with this purchase. So.
14 months back from ready for pickup, we will know exactly what that truck's going to cost us, either below or above the 5% inflationary cost.
So do they take like the cost that they're quoting today, and until we get to that 14-month level, they add all of that inflation, and if it's more than 5%, then at that time?
It's basically a best projection from today because it's a 36 to 38-month build.
Yep.
They can't really project what the prices are going to be 14 months from the build time.
So when we do like pre-inspections, we can cut out costs. If they meet us here, that's going to save us almost $8,000. They also put a buffer in for the 2027 engine of $15,000. Well, if that cost isn't there, that comes off of it as well. So
I think it's reasonable to say it's going to be very close, hopefully, to what the price is in the contract, unless there's an inflationary thing that happens that we're just unsure about at this point.
Anything over 5 they eat.
No,
Anything
if
under
it's
five.
under 5.
Under 5 they eat.
They eat.
Over 5, we'll have to sit down with the city commission and see if we want to move forward.
If we wanna-
I do have it in writing that it says that the city will get to choose whether to move forward with that project at no cost if we decide that inflation is too much.
And if it's over 5, we eat the entirety? They don't eat the first 5%?
I'm not certain on that.
Okay.
But that's a really good
Yes,
question.
good.
Yeah, they should eat
It
first
says
5%.
amount
If they're
equal
gonna
to the
cover
increase
5%.
over 5%, so.
I think it's-
amount
I think
okay,
it's
so
over.
yeah, so it sounds like they're gonna eat that 5% regardless.
We're only responsible for over the 5% over.
Gotcha,
Yes.
gotcha, good deal.
The only comment I want to make to the commission is by taking action today, we are securing our place in line to purchase a fire pumper. At the mid-year budget amendment, we will have to allocate funds for that and realize we will carry that on the books until it's delivered. So much like we have a fire truck now,
Right.
we're committed to paying that. We will be for this one as well. So I just want to let you know that that's how it works. We don't budget for the year that it's delivered. You have to commit to it now because we've obligated.
Do any more questions? I want to make a comment to you guys, and just tell you how much I appreciate you coming and telling us this. Because I was the one probably who had more to say than anybody else on the commission when Seagrave sent us that letter. It really made me angry because frankly, I didn't know that this was in the contract to begin with. And then second of all, the way they worded the letter, it just didn't sit well with any of us here.
Right.
And just for you guys to take this time to tell us a little bit about the contract up front so that if we run into a similar situation, we know what we're dealing with, it means a lot to us. Thank you.
And
Is
side
this-
note, I'd like to
Yeah.
commend Chelsea. She's Miss Mills. She sat down with us. She was open-minded about it, going with this with the source well. It was something that's new for us, and she, anytime you get somebody to listen to you and understand it, stuff like that, and help us through that process, we're very thankful for it. So, you did a
Well, this
good job.
company's been around since the Great Depression,
Yeah.
Great Recession. Oh, okay, I thought it said depression. Okay.
No, how long's Pierce been in business?
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure on that.
Long time.
Yeah, a long time.
Good deal.
All right.
Well, thank you guys very much. We appreciate it. And if there are no other questions or comments, I believe we have a motion and a second on the floor. And so we will call for a vote, please.
Commissioner Hargis. Aye. Commissioner Thomas.
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt.
Aye.
Commissioner Witt.
Aye.
Mayor Staten.
Aye. Next up, we have a municipal order approving a proposal for operation and management agreement at the sports complex.
Municipal order number 9-25, municipal order accepting proposal of Sports Facilities Management LLC for the operation and management of the Henderson Sports Complex, approving facility management agreement between the City of Henderson and Sports Facilities Management LLC, and authorizing the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
We have a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Do we have a second? We got a motion and a second. Dylan, before you talk, I do want to let everybody know. We've got a number of kind of heavy discussion items on the agenda, so we're going to be here for a bit longer than normal. This is one of them. And so, Dylan, if you'd like to tell us a little bit more about what we're looking at Sports Complex.
Yeah, so I'm going to give a 10,000-foot view to start off with, and then I know there's several people in this room who have looked at this contract for city staff perspective, specifically Jen, our project manager, and our engineering assistant, Mark Simmons. So if at any point you all want to add anything, feel free to. So one, I'll apologize. The final contract did not make it into the agenda. We have placed what is more or less the final draft in front of you all. So I'm going to talk through what these services are first, and then I'm going to kind of briefly touch on the high points of the contract. I did talk with our city attorney beforehand, and she said, this was proper protocol to provide this to you all. We don't expect that there will be any major changes to the agreement you have in front of you versus where we're at. Just we have been in heavy negotiations with sports facilities companies over the last couple weeks. Have done a lot of back and forth. It's been good conversations. But due to the ribbon cutting for the sports complex being on March 29th, we did not want to wait another 2 weeks because basically until we have this contract executed, they cannot start hiring employees. So that's where I'll kind of jump into what this actually is. So we've talked in the past several times about how to operate the sports complex. We have looked at everything from running it ourselves with our own staff to kind of halfway running it with our staff and half having someone else. And several months ago, we decided to go down the route of hiring basically a third-party operator to basically run it for us. And so what this would look like is we would hire sports facilities companies, and I guess I should back up. We did a competitive procurement for this. So we did a request for proposals. We solicited proposals for the operation and management of the sports complex. We had 3 submit, and we interviewed the top 2. We had a selection committee consisting of myself, our engineering assistant, project manager, finance director, and project coordinator, and we all came to the unanimous decision that Sports Facilities Companies was the best candidate. They're the company who operates the mega complex in E-Town. They've also got agreements with Madisonville, Paducah, and various other entities throughout the nation. They have a lot of established relationships with national organizations that host tournaments. So whereas it would take us years, if not a decade, to form those relationships, they already have those relationships, so they can just call them and say, hey, we've got a new facility, we're managing it, we're operating it, come to our facility, check it out. So that's a benefit. So the way that this agreement would work is we would basically sit down with them during budget time, being city staff, and it would ultimately be presented to you all for approval, and develop a budget together. So they would essentially be hired to manage our money for us. So all of the revenues at the facility would be collected by them, and Chelsea stepped out, but I think I'm going to get this right. So basically they would collect...
She's over your other shoulder, sir.
Sorry. So Ms. Mills, if you have anything to add, feel free, but it's my understanding we would basically be paying them to manage our expenses and our revenues for us. So the idea is that we would pay them because they would be able to generate more revenue than we could, and they would be able to minimize their expenses in ways that we couldn't. And so we would sit down with them, create a budget, and then basically we would fund that budget with city money, and they would manage that for us. And so that would be in a bank account that we would have full access to, that we could see, so it would be completely transparent. The contract spells out how they have to follow procurement policy, so there's no, and they also have the benefit of being this large corporation that have contracts nationwide. So I think we're covered in that area, but it's basically just these guys are the experts, or these guys and girls are the experts. They're nationally recognized. When they came in for their interview, the amount of branding and logos and just the amount of resources they have really kind of blew me away with what they have available. So that's kind of how it's going to work. They would manage our money for us with the hopes that they could do a better job managing our money than we could. Does that kind of make sense how that arrangement works? Okay. So what you'll see in front of you is the contract, and that basically just spells out the details. So I'm going to talk through that, and then I'm going to hand out a budget here, a kind of a mock budget here in a minute. So I'm not going to go into great detail on this unless y'all have questions. I'm going to kind of hit the highlights. The first several pages are definitions. Article 2 and 3 kind of spell out just various things. Commissioner Thomas asked about early termination. There are clauses in this contract for termination for cause by the owner, as well as termination without cause by the owner. I will say that the termination without cause by the owner, those are pretty steep. We did negotiate them down pretty heavily, but the reason being for that is, if they do something wrong, we have a way to get out. If we just decide in 2 years that we want to go a different direction just because we don't feel, we just have a change of heart, they're putting stuff in there to protect themselves because these are going to be their employees. So these are employees that they've hired. They're going to invest resources here. And so as you can imagine, that's an investment for them. And so for them to move those resources is a cost. So I just wanted to point that out. They talk about ownership of various materials. They have a lot of proprietary equipment, technology, resources that they will employ at our facility, and they're just saying that they will reserve the rights to that. They talk a little bit about their employees. They discuss how the accounting is going to work. Insurance is really the last thing that we have to finalize with them. There's a couple. We came to an agreement on the amounts. We're just trying to add a few legal.
Subrogation and
yeah.
labor.
So once we have that, this contract should be more or less finalized. And then let's see if there's anything else I want to point out. At the end, I want to get to the costs. And if you all have any questions at any point, feel free to stop me.
On the insurance, how is that gonna work? Are we gonna be liable, say one of them gets hurt out there, are we liable or it's going off the other guy's insurance?
So, I was just, I'll let you address
All
that.
right. So when you say if they get hurt, are you talking about one
Say
of
they're
their
in it, whatever they're
employees?
cooking,
One of
cutting
their
things.
employees, if one of their employees gets hurt, they have workers' comp, and so that will fall within their workers' comp. We will not pay for that.
And I
That's
don't
their
know.
workers' comp. If someone is injured due to, some of their negligence, their insurance is primary. If it's something that's not their negligence, our insurance won't. So, does that help?
Yeah, I was, since they're gonna be on, he's hiring them, I was saying,
Yeah, they're
Or
not
whether-
our employees.
yeah.
They are not our employees. They are not under CERS. They are not, they're not under our autos. They're not under any of those. Now, if we own some of the equipment out there, and the equipment gets damaged, then that would fall under our insurance, but their injury would be their workers.
One question, oh, go ahead.
What about an audit process for the bank account? Would that? Okay.
Yeah, there is, I do know, Chelsea, do you recall that specifically? I know there is an audit section in here. I'm trying to find where it is.
I'll just mention that with the bank account, they'll be overseeing all that, so they'll be handling it, but they have assured me that I'll have access to it, and then on a monthly basis, I'll be sitting down with someone in their accounting department, and we'll kind of go over their bank recon to make sure it all ties out, as well as all the other expenses that are coming through that bank account. And then in the contract, I'm not sure where it is, but it says every year that we'll have like an audit, so we'll be able to audit their whole entire book for what they're doing with our money.
Okay.
Good question.
how long, is this gonna be for?
That's a good question. I'm glad you pointed out because I meant to cover that. So the initial term was 5 years, and then it would automatically renew for an extra 3 unless either party notifies the other 180 days before that expires. I believe it's 180 days. So 5 with the option of 3 more.
Do we have the option to renew for 5 more years or just the 3-year renewal?
So that was something we talked about, and honestly, that was a little bit of an oversight when we put out the RFP, and I'll take responsibility for it. We said the initial, because a lot of our agreements, like with the golf course, for example, I think it's set up where it's 5 years and we're in the second 5-year term. Maybe there may even be a third one. The RFP was quiet to a renewal term. So I know SFC would prefer something longer. Don, I don't know if you have a comment on that, but I think 5 + 3 was kind of where we landed. Worst case scenario, what we would do is if everything's going well at the end of 8 years, we would put the RFP out again and, prior to it expiring, and you'd have to go through those hoops, but you could renew it, essentially create a new contract at that point.
One of the things that we talked about when we were negotiating with them is could we do renewals for 1-year terms? So 5 years and then renew, because that's generally what we like to do, is, especially on a brand new contract, we'll do it another year. And they, of course, don't want that because they have so many things invested. So we came to 3 years but that was negotiated.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what they wanted was an initial 7-year term, and our RFP was clear that it had to be a 5-year. So
Gotcha.
that's how that was a negotiation.
Well, we will
Good
know
deal.
after 4 or 5 years whether.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll know after 2 years.
there you go.
Yeah, that was City Manager Newman's point too. So we should know after 5 years. And I guess I should ask on Zoom. Do we have anybody? Can we see if anybody from SFC is on
I
Zoom?
think they were a minute ago.
Okay.
I'll
Okay. Oh yeah, there's Greg. So Greg Weiscarver is our contractual point of contact with SFC. And so Greg, if at any point you want to say anything, feel free to jump in. Sorry, I should have acknowledged that you were on there sooner. So the last page that I want to talk about, that's the big one, is page 20. So this is Exhibit B, manager compensation. So this is the big question, right? Okay, so when we're looking at the budget, and this took me a while to understand, so hopefully I can explain it well. We're going to sit down with SFC and we're going to create a budget, and that budget is going to be adopted and approved by you all. So we're going to sit down with them and we're going to come to an agreement on what we think our revenues are going to be and what we think our expenses are going to be. As part of that expenses, you will have salaries for their employees who will be in that. So it'll kind of mimic what you see in one of our budgets for the city. one of the line items for the budget, one of the expenses, will be the management fee. The best way that I can kind of explain the management fee is that's kind of their overhead or profit. So the employees who are actually at the sports complex will have a salary, but they are this national organization that has corporate people their resources are being tied up in our facility, but they're not necessarily getting compensated as a line item in our budget. So, and Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of how I view their management fee. So the proposed management fee is roughly $17,000 a month. And that would be monthly, and you can see number 1 there on page 20. It kind of spells it out. And when the agreement would go into effect, we would pay the first 6 payments up front. So basically, we would pay the first 6 payments in one lump sum. We would continue to pay monthly that amount, and then the last 6 months of the year we wouldn't have to pay. So we're actually paying the final 6 months up front. So the idea is that we're going to bring this organization in, we're going to pay them this management fee, and they're going to be able to manage our money better than us. And I know the mayor and I were talking this morning. There was a question about the $80,000 that we have paid them already. So that is separate from this. What we paid them previously was for pre-opening consulting services. So that was specifically for them to help us make decisions, get the sports complex up and running. This is actually for the actual running of the sports complex itself. And City Manager Newman or maybe the mayor asked me if that was money well spent, and I will say definitely. There were real decisions we made at the sports complex that have the potential to save us well more than what we cost in the consulting services. For example, we've been told by SFC, based on their historical data, the difference between a prepackaged concession stand and a full service concession stand is the difference, I think that these numbers are accurate, between $15,000 in gross profit in a weekend and $6,000 in gross profit in a weekend. So about $9,000 in a weekend. So basically, if you're just selling nachos, candy bars, sodas, that sort of thing, versus having a full kitchen, which we upgraded as part of their consulting services to have fried chicken tenders, to have French fries, to have all this stuff. The difference is with baseball, if you have a tournament, you can come and be there all day. And now with this new concession stand upgrades, we have a reason to keep people and not to let them leave. And that just means additional revenue for the facility. So there's that. The other funding source that they'll have, and we did negotiate them down on this, was they will keep, for any new sponsorships sold, they will keep 30% of that revenue. So that's kind of the carrot for them to go out and get additional sponsorship. So as you all know, former Mayor Steve Austin, he has gotten somewhere between $800,000 and $900,000 in sponsorships. And so that effort has largely, he did a great job, but that effort has largely been placed on pause. And so the question is, who carries that effort now? Well, SFC could do that for us as part of this contract, and their percentage would be 30%, which from what we've seen from other arrangements and in talking with them, that's an industry standard. And actually, most of their newer contracts, they said, are going to 40%. So that's a good way for us to have additional revenue. And then the other couple things down there, payroll compensation and reimbursement expenses, those would be a part of the budget that we would approve. So I want to show you all this. This is a pro forma that this is just a draft. This is what they submitted when they submitted their RFP response. And basically they took what they knew about our facility in a limited aspect and said, okay, here's what we think your net budget would look like for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And there's a few things I want to show you. So for the audience, in year one, it shows, since we're getting this thing up and running kind of midway through and we don't have all these relationships established and we're not even going to really tournaments you need to have booked the year before. So tournaments for this summer probably needed to be booked by last summer. That's kind of how the industry goes. Obviously, with us opening this thing up a few months before summer starts, there's going to be some weekends we don't hit. So as you can see, it does show, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, and it shows some totals at the bottom. And at the very bottom, you'll see the numbers in black that show a small net deficit less than $100,000. So what I want to point out about this is when we put out the RFP, we made our goals and objectives for this project very clear. The number one goal, and this is based on what I've heard from the commission over the last, not just this commission, but the prior 2 commissions, was that the number one goal was to meet local recreational needs. So one thing to keep in mind is that this facility, if the primary goal was to make money and, you know, just subsidize the city budget, that would be a direct contradiction to meeting local needs. From what we've heard from you all in the past is that we want to provide this facility for free for our local recreational leagues, and we want them a place to play, just like PCMA plays right now at the facility over across from the middle school. So that was the number one. So they kept that in mind when they drafted it. The second one is to maximize the potential revenue to offset the operating cost of the sports complex, and then the third was to maximize the economic impact. So as an example, one of the things when we're looking at this budget, one of the things to keep in mind, I did a rough calculation before I came in here, but if we just look at, we've got PCMA's potential schedule for the spring. One thing that SFC has been gracious enough to do for us is start putting together a draft schedule. If we start looking at PCMA alone, how many hours we expect that they'll use this facility only for their spring season, this doesn't include fall ball or t-ball, we're expecting that they could probably, based on the numbers they have currently, they would be expected to use the complex for about 576 hours. That's field hours. So that's, you know, if we look at how many fields they need, how many hours they need, it's 576 hours. The going rate for renting these fields on the low end is $75 an hour. So if you look at that, you multiply that out, that's $43,000 that we have just given away in local free use. And these are calculations that SFC will give to us. So I only throw that number out to show you that that's money that we could capitalize on, but we're not, because we're giving that back to the community. And so when we're looking at the budget, it's all about, okay, are we charging everybody or are we just charging some people? And it's a balancing game. It's all about your goals and what you want to accomplish. And so with that, I'll kind of stop talking and see if y'all have any questions and see if that makes sense.
2 questions, Dylan. I appreciate you for sharing all that. And this might be a question for him on the phone. If not, it talks about the sponsorship advertisement revenue. Is that basically, that would be their projections going forward? Or is that taking what we've earned so far and basically chopping that over 5 years?
So we, no. So it would be new sponsorships. Yeah, that was one thing. There was actually something in there where they would get a smaller percentage of what we had already sold, and we kind of negotiated through that. But Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that the sponsorships that are in that pro forma would be new sponsorships, so not naming rights we've already sold. I'm pretty certain of that.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear me okay?
Yeah,
we can.
But certainly, I've got a latest to but bottom line is, this is your facility, we want to fit into it. Measure one thing, is this facility being operated? That's it. Beginning and end question, we don't have an agenda on sponsorship. Anything that's been sold prior to our existing engagement being signed, any percentage of that, I want to be clear, we still will to fill promises made to them. Right? We will make sure they are good partners and make it full time, no brainer. They want to continue to follow. So we did say if it's a renewal, then we would be nothing that's already been done, even if it hasn't been collected on, whatever, that is a part of the agreement, as well as anything in the new version of specifically non-profit. They want to sell banners or whatever to support the operations of their business. We will not take any.
Thank you, Greg. I'm glad you brought that up as well.
I got a question. Can he hear us?
Yeah, can you hear us, Greg?
You're great.
Okay.
Okay, Greg, you said something real quick. You said any new renewals that you would have the right to negotiate them. You're not talking about past 30%, are you?
No, sir. 30% would be what we would get on sponsor.
Okay.
The negotiation would be how much that sponsor would pay this complex annually, or for example, like a pouring rights deal usually falls on sponsorship. They're going to give you some money or some reasons or things like that. We negotiate those countries, so those kind of things. Dual, like the terms from 5 years ago, not the terms today. You guys are involved in all that, and above the threshold, so I can't remember if we named the threshold, but we would bring that to the commission. We're not going to sign that. This is your facility. We're just.
So Commissioner Pruitt, to answer your question, so like, for example, when we looked at Greenville and their sports complex, they sold their naming rights in perpetuity. But we used those same amounts that they used per field, I think roughly the same, and sold ours for 5 years. So like some of the people that we have right now, you know, we're collecting for one field, we're collecting $50,000 over 5 years. So what he's saying is in 5 years, when those contracts are up, they might find new people to become a naming right. They might find the same person. They would get 30% of it at that point, basically when the current agreements are terminated. And we, in discussions, I talked with the mayor and city manager, and we thought that was fair, so.
Okay, explain, what's the difference in operating expense and management payroll?
Is that on is that on Exhibit A?
Last one on expense.
Yeah.
What page is that on, Rodney?
Oh, it's just, this is pro forma.
Oh, okay.
The very bottom.
Oh,
of pro forma.
on pro forma, okay,
Yeah,
let me
you
look
got
at that.
Facility expense, operating expense, management, payroll. And payroll.
So
taxes.
I think the operating expense, let's see, because they don't have a breakout of this, but I think operating expenses would be anything other than payroll. So any of your supplies, maintenance, I don't know, Greg, if you know what else operating expenses would include. It also, let's see, cost of
goods sold is up top.
Yeah, cost of goods sold up top.
That's already included.
Greg, do you know what operating expenses would typically include, aside for management payroll?
I do. Let me pull it up to you, a sample.
So
When
we've,
we respond to an RFP, you know, our forms that we run, 80 pages, not friendly to the market. Let me scroll. Facility expenses are things like janitorial expenses, basic supplies, maintenance and repairs, utility expense, those are facility expenses. On outdoor fields would be turf maintenance, labor, grounds maintenance, lighting, under that, field lighting, facility expenses. Operating expenses are marketing and advertising, insurance, legal fees, office supplies, software, bank service, your credit card fees on bank credit, so actual operating and day-to-day running of, if any of that makes sense. Insurance.
so one
It's
thing.
really about the facility itself and the care and maintenance of the facility.
So one thing I'll add, Commissioner Thomas, I've seen budgets from them that are a lot more detailed than this. So if you think back to the way our budget is handled, and we have each of those 4 numbers for each line item, like they would give us, this is just a 10,000 foot view. We would have something where we would line by line item say, okay, you got $200 for postage, that's too much. You got this much for clothing, we don't accept that, or we need to go here. So we would work with them line by line on them, just like we would every division. And I probably should have printed off a sample detail, but we have been provided other ones, and these are basically just a sum of, like he said, a whole bunch of other things put together. And when we would bring it to your all's attention for approval, we would make sure it was the detailed version.
And then the question I had was, we're talking about the base management fee. Is that backed out anywhere in the pro forma, or is that be in addition to that?
No, so it would be in, so, Greg, can you tell me in which line item the management fee would be included in under the pro forma? Because it is included,
Yeah, it's in operating expenses.
Okay, good. Okay.
Okay, all right.
so that's 200,000
That makes it a
of
little better,
that,
Yeah,
roughly.
that deal, okay. Yeah, I can breathe easy then, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it should be included.
Good questions, though, yeah.
No surprise.
So Dylan, I have a question. We currently have recreational leagues that play baseball. Under this situation, this contract will maintain all the fields, correct?
Yes, sir.
Who provides the umpiring services?
So that's a good question. So I'm glad you asked that, because that allows me to talk about this for a minute. So SFC can do everything. They can come in, they can take over our facility and run every program we have. That's not the intent. We have organizations like PCMA, and we have others that will hopefully eventually use a facility once the facility gets built out. And we fully anticipate, and we've told these organizations, we want you to run your leagues. We're going to manage the facility. So when I talked about the schedule, what I've done is I've had PCMA send us when they need the facility. There's been some negotiating. We're going to have to do things. As you all know, we've got a new facility. Things are going to have to be done a little bit differently than maybe the way they've done them in the past. There's a few things different, but the big thing is their leagues are primarily done during the week, and we want to have the facility available on the weekends for tournaments. So it's fully our understanding that SFC, PCMA will say we need the fields these nights on these days. They might not even tell them, they can tell them the games and who's playing and all that. There's really no need. They can if they want, but then SFC will just make sure it's available. And so SFC will be responsible for making sure the field's ready. PCMA will be responsible for running their league. That being said, if PCMA came in tomorrow and said we don't want to do it anymore, we want SFC to do it, they could. When it comes to umpires, that's an area where we can work with the two organizations to figure out who wants to do what. As I told PCMA, if there's certain parts of your league that you just do not like doing or you have trouble doing, utilize SFC and let them help you. One of the concerns that PCMA has brought up, and I'll go ahead and mention this now because I'm not sure if I've talked about it before, is being able to they don't want, if let's say they charge $50 a kid now, if they move to the new facility and they have to increase it by some minimal amount, $5, $10, we or they are not too worried about that. But if they come back and say, hey, we can't do this, we got to have $100, we're going to have to increase $100. That's where we'll work with them, okay? There's things we can do. One of the best examples I've thrown out is, what if PCMA, they're famous, I guess, for their pork chop sandwiches. What if they buy all the pork chop sandwiches, SFC cooks them and sell them, we just keep our at cost and we let them keep the revenue. So there's things we can do for these organizations, because I don't think anybody wants to have the player fees go from 50 to 100. But the one thing that I have said to PCMA, and I've told both our engineering assistant and our project manager were present for the conversation, is we need to see a budget. We need to see, if you're telling us it's going to cost $50 more a kid, we need to see that. We need to see some sort of business plan that says, here's your expenses, here's your revenues, what is that, before we just, start having conversations about reducing our own revenues. And so that's just kind of some of the conversations we've had, but does that kind of speak to your
Well, it
question?
circles back around to the point while we're doing this.
Correct.
Right.
And we all agreed up front when we decided to build this complex how we were going to manage it. And we all know how we have done it for the past 60 years. And by this investment into this new complex, that the approach would be different going forward. So I think you've explained how it would work, and we hope that that the benefit back to the leagues is to reduce their cost
Right.
to their players by us providing a lot of these services and maintenance and things of that nature. So thank you.
Yeah, and the one last thing I'll add, because I touched on this earlier, so while I said SFC is a full-service firm, they can do everything, one of the cool things that we'll get from them that we probably wouldn't do if we did ourselves, they are going to fill the gaps. So if there are certain sports or activities that are not currently offered by other, nonprofit or local leagues, they're going to do that. So I fully anticipate you'll see, maybe an adult kickball league. They'll have events that are even non-sport related. They say at some of their other events they've had game nights where they set up tables on the fields and encourage other community members who maybe have never had another reason to come to the sports complex to bring them there. They'll set up bounce houses. They'll do family-friendly and even adult-friendly events to bring people to the sports complex. And that's the kind of out-of-the-box community thinking that I think we really get value from an organization like this.
Yeah, Texas, 140 a kid, PCMA.
Okay. Yeah.
Is what the current cost is?
So I was a little off.
I got a question for Greg. All right. Can you hear me, Greg?
Yes, sir.
All right, so if you have a tournament on the weekend, you bring in your baseball organization, who gets the gates?
Well, that would be depending on the baseball organization. It's negotiated in that, but there's a lot of parts that go into different baseball organizations. They all run a little bit different, but I will say, for us, we know all of them. We operate the World Headquarters, so we get first crack at them. One time that Dylan mentioned, like, the opening this summer, you really, that's very true. These organizations go pretty far out. But we have leverage on all of them. We operate 70+ venues, and we want to be at most of our venues, right? So we can go to them and say, hey, we want to be at the new one opening. we're planning on this year. We'll leverage those relationships to get business to you guys. But there's big, it depends on the size of the tournament. There are game teams. We don't ever give away a team food and beverage. That'll be the greatest avenue for driving towards bottom line. So it would be a gate depending on older. You want to know if it's four kids, the gate's going to be smaller. We're happy to engage and get the full price for the facility because there's not many people coming. If it's younger kids or girls softball, everybody's going to come watch baby play.
Yep.
So we're happy to maybe lower on rental for a bigger piece of the gate, knowing that we're all negotiating. We certainly work with you guys to create boundaries there over the place, but our job is to advise you, like we're doing about humane, like do we want to have us pay for them paying for it? How we want our job is now to say, okay, I know you want to do this. Let us show you, let us know the numbers and our show you what the impact of your decisions are. And now you're well educated to make those decisions, know what the impact is.
So we'll negotiate that. Okay.
What other questions or comments or suggestions? I know this is a lot, especially for you to take in, right? We've been talking about this for 7 years and,
We hear it now.
yeah.
We thought ordering a fire truck was good.
Yeah, I know. Any other questions or comments or anything for Dylan or for Greg?
I'm just a little concerned about the way PCA made their money for their organization. And then if they switch over to us, how does that really affect their bottom line? Like they used to cook pork chops out there and stuff and sell it. So without them getting that money, that's gonna affect them in, their budgeting. And like I said, they're paying $140 a kid now. Does that make them raise up to $175?
You think a lot?
But-
You think a lot of the cost was just maintaining the fields?
Staying in the fields.
Yeah, that's what I say.
But, I mean,
Yeah,
cost-
so
well,
maybe
cost should
if
be
it offsets.
uniforms, t-shirt and shorts, umpires. Rest of the cost we absorb.
We're actually
So in theory,
absorbing
it's
some of the
Well,
costs that they
all
Yeah,
have.
the-
yeah,
all
so
the
I say,
costs, so-
I just didn't want,
Yeah.
a switch over and
Yeah.
it affect them negatively.
Yeah, yeah.
So they had to raise the kids up,
And I think we all agree with that, and that's kind of the guidance that we've given Dylan and others along the way, is that the number one priority for these fields is to take care of our local
Yes.
And, we don't want to have brand-new fields open and then each kid have to pay $300 a year instead of $140, and you know that. So as part of when you're negotiating things with these leagues, we don't want to just give away the farm.
Right.
Because we need to operate as close to net zero as we can on this facility. But we do need to be pliable in the way that we deal with these organizations, so that the kids in our community benefit, right?
Sir.
Good deal.
I just got one more thing to say.
Go ahead.
When I look at contracts, I really don't look at all the inner parts. Really one thing that concerns me, how easily can we get out of a contract? And whenever you get a chance, text me some stuff to let me know how easy we can get out. I'm not worried about getting in.
It looks
Yeah.
pretty costly to get out.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like, what, 6 months of management fees plus some other related expenses?
And I guess
At a
the-
minimum of 100,000, at a minimum.
And I guess the question is that are you more concerned about with or without cause? Because if it's for cause,
right.
So because that was Commissioner Thomas and I had a
But no, if
con-
it's working good, you don't,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to
Oh,
get out.
So and that was Commissioner Witt. That was kind of a conversation that Commissioner Thomas and I had was, without cause, it's a pretty steep fee. And so let's just say 2 years from now we get a new commission and they decide we just don't want to do this anymore. There's nothing wrong. So that would be a steep fee, and it would honestly be a little bit of a discouragement for them to get out of it. So that was kind of a conversation we had. If it's for cause, there is a clause in here that
Yeah.
makes it clear that we can get out.
Yeah, what I was concerned about was we get these guys in, they do a great job. The mission flips in 2 years. They don't care about youth sports and say, we want out. So it gives them a little teeth, which they should, if they're doing right, by us. We should take care of it.
Absolutely.
And
That's what we wanted to do.
what I've seen on paper, they're doing right. Yeah.
No, and the last question that I have, for Dylan, real quick, we had this conversation earlier today. So, just ballpark,
Yeah.
don't have to talk about specific numbers. How much money do you think that we are going to save by having an outside operator run it versus having ourselves run it? And
So-
why do you think that is the amount of money that we're going to save?
So when we set out to do this ourselves, we had two people that we were going to hire. We had a sports complex manager, which was going to be Mr. Mark Simmons in the back, and a maintenance person. And we realized very quickly that one, we were, no offense to Mr. Simmons in the back, but that was something that we were not capable of doing. And when you look at their staff, they're looking at having like a food and beverage coordinator. They're looking at having a tournaments person, a marketing people. They're having a general manager. They have several, I think up to 5 potentially full-time employees at this facility. And so I'll just say this, when we did our budget, it was not operating at near the level they are. But just to give you an idea, in the current fiscal year budget, we put a $500,000 placeholder in the budget for this as a deficit. Just showed a straight loss basically of $500,000. And so compared to what you're seeing here, somewhere between, I forget what the first year is, 140 maybe down to 100. The savings is large, and you're going to get a facility that is much more professionally run. Once again, no offense to Mark, but better than what he or I could do. And the key comes to this: you're paying them this management fee to maximize revenues and minimize expenses in a way that we couldn't, because they know this, they live it, breathe it, and they do it nationally.
All right, let me say this real quick. On the beverage alone, they're forecasted at 27%, which I'm sure they've got their own recipes, they've got their own menus. They've costed this out everywhere, and they know this, okay? So at that cost, the cost is $183,600. If you go up to 40%, which is what it would be if we ran it, if we were lucky, because you're gonna have waste, $272,000. Saving
Just on beverage.
$90,000 just by them running the concessions, based on my knowledge of food business.
Well, and we get to leverage their, Greg talked about it earlier. We get to leverage their contacts and their ability to
networking.
bring in tournaments and run the facility. And again, the other thing I want to stress before we close the conversation is a point that you made earlier, and that is we can make it to where we make more money on the facility. However, that will compromise our number one goal for the facility, and that is to provide for our local kids. And so this is a balance that I personally can live with. If we have to subsidize $100,000 a year for this facility, but it takes care of our local kids and gets action and also has some economic impact from bringing in people for tournaments, we're kind of balancing ourselves out to run the facility in a proper way. And we'll know after a year or two some tweaks that we can make to make this number, the deficit even smaller, and might even flip to the revenue side, so or a net revenue side.
Well, then you also get somebody that's impartial.
Yeah. Politics or, yeah, exactly.
Know how that works.
Exactly. Well, thank you for the presentation. It has been so long, I forgot if we had a motion or a second. We do?
Part of the discussion.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, or
Thank you, Greg.
suggestions?
Yep.
Thank you, Greg, for being on the
Appreciate it.
line. We appreciate it. Roll call,
Thank you so
please.
much. Appreciate you guys.
All right. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hargis. Aye. Commissioner Thomas.
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt.
Aye.
Commissioner Witt.
Aye.
Mayor Staten.
Aye. Next up, we have a municipal order for a proposal for a Parks Master Plan Agreement.
Municipal order number 10-25, municipal order accepting proposal of Branstetter Carroll Incorporated for the development of a Parks and Recreation Master Plan for the city of Henderson and approving the agreement Henderson Parks Recreation Master Plan between the city of Henderson and Branstetter Carroll and authorizing the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
We have a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Dylan, is this you again?
We'll let Jenna take
All right, Jen, all right, fresh face.
He said he figured he'd probably talk enough.
Oh, he did.
Yes.
And Mark regrets showing up because of Dylan's speech. Yes, ma'am.
So we put out a RFQ, a request for qualifications for a Parks Master Plan. We received 5 responses and we interviewed 3. It was the assistant city manager, myself, the parks director, the parks director, and then 2 parks board members on the committee that interviewed. And we all selected Branstetter and Carroll as the most qualified person to do this plan for us. I'll give you a little overview on what they're going to do. We have Pat online, so he can answer any questions if needed. So what Branstetter Carroll is going to do is they're going to come in, they're going to review any type of plans that we have existing, like our vision plan, I believe we have a bicycle path plan from 2014. They're going to look at all of the existing plans that we have. They're going to review demographics. They are going to look at any type of I believe the past 5 years of our budget. They are going to compare all of our parks they're going to review all of our parks, and they're also going to compare us to surrounding cities, other cities in the state that are comparable in size to us. They're going to review any of our ordinance and policies. They're going to look at any type of gaps that we have, like service gaps. Yes, we serve this age really well for our parks, but maybe we need to better find a way to serve this other age group. So what they're mainly going to do is they're going to collect all this information. That's their first step. Then they are going to involve the public. They're going to have open houses. They're going to find fun ways to involve your families to come out. And they'll also do web-based surveys. If we decide, they'll mail out questions to houses. It just depends on what we're looking for. They are going to have meetings with individual stakeholders of our community. And then, so what they're going to do is so they've taken all the information they've gathered from our parks, all of our community input, and they're going to have an action plan. So based on all that information, they will have improvement recommendations for us based on individual parks and then an associated cost. They can also look at conceptual plans if, for an example, I know the Veterans Park downtown has been mentioned. They could look at that as a conceptual plan, as an example. There's also an included trails plan that would include, they would assess Canoe Creek Trail. They would also do a citywide map. So they're just going to look at the connectivity between neighborhoods and the business area, maybe there's like Walmart, those types of things. So all of that is included, and then they would present to us in a document that we would use to move forward with our park system.
Good deal. Does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns? This is another one we've been talking about for a while.
Yeah. Are we gonna have long-term goals?
Yes.
Okay.
There'll be long-term
So
goals
what we
and
need to do, year
objectives
1,
there.
year 3, year 5?
Yes.
10? Okay. Perfect.
You know, something important to me, for me too, is to come out of this with some kind of preventive maintenance and replacement
Yes.
plan, and that's going to be included also?
It is. There's so much, it's hard to go
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
everything that's included. Yes, that would be in there.
Good. And when do we kick it off? So if we approve this today, when do we start?
I believe we'll probably, to get the community involved, it will probably wait till the weather's a little bit nicer. But, I mean, they'll probably go ahead and start collecting information on their end right away. Is that correct? Perfect.
Good deal. Any other buzzing?
What about an end date? When do we hope to complete this process?
Did we have a timeline on there, Pat?
There's about a 10-month period. The trails plan might take a little bit longer. In that period, we'll probably have 5 trains. Later on your agenda. One survey takes about 3 months.
Pat, can you tell us just briefly on what other cities have you all served with the same service?
There's 100 of them.
I mean, near us that we might know. I should have clarified.
Yeah, well, you've done Paducah 3 times. A long time ago in Madisonville. Bowling Green, Warren County, Gilbert County. Boone County, all 3 of the northern counties. Where's down
Thank- Thank you, sir. The only reason I ask is this is kind of a new concept for us, and I just wanted to make the connection that it's not so new to the industry or to the cities around us. It's just the first time that we've kind of taken a look at going this direction, so.
And we've seen that the communities
Good deal. Any other comments or questions? I think we're good to have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Hargis. Commissioner Thomas.
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt.
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Mayor Staten.
Aye. Thank you for being with us, Pat. Appreciate it. Municipal order accepting a fee proposal for professional civil engineering and surveying services.
Municipal order number 11-25, municipal order accepting fee proposal for professional civil engineering and surveying services submitted to the city of Henderson, Kentucky from Palmer Engineering Kentucky of Winchester, Kentucky, related to the Barrett Boulevard pad grade and roadway design project in the amount of $50,000 and authorizing the mayor to execute all necessary documents on behalf of the city.
Motion to approve, please.
Moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Buzzy, you want to tell us just a little bit about this?
And for Commissioner Hargis's sake, I'll give a little background. Several years ago, we purchased approximately 130 acres of ground that is located behind Walmart and Lowe's. Y'all are aware, we have sold off about 50 acres to the Jago Development. They have an option to purchase 50 additional acres, and then the balance is about 30 acres of that original farm. And if y'all remember, recently we just acquired an additional 5 acres from the Merrill family to bring the total to about 35 acres. It has always been the intent, I think, of this commission to develop that into commercial retail development, i.e. restaurants, hotels, etc. So with that being said, we're now at the point that we have Barrett Boulevard extension completed. Palmer Engineering did that work for us several years ago. We now are ready to market our property, but in order to market it, you got to get it to a position in which you can sell it. So what we have asked Palmer to do is to look at this property, do a preliminary layout for future streets, and prepare a mass grading plan to support those future streets. I think it has to be noted that we have been recently made aware with the completion of Phase 1 of I-69 that the Federal Highway Administration will have to go back to FEMA, and they will have to determine a new floodplain area that surrounds the I-69 corridor. We are somewhat aware that our property could be impacted by that, and what part of this process and planning and construction will do is if any of this property that we own could potentially come back into the floodplain, we want to mitigate as much as that is possible. So we anticipate that process with FEMA to begin sometime in 2026 after the completion of Phase 1. I will also say that in our budget process from last year, we put in approximately $1 million to develop that property so we can begin the retail sale of that property. I will tell you that I met last week with a person that's representing a retail company that has interest in locating there. Y'all have approved a hotel study that we can utilize to attract hoteliers into that property. So it's just another piece of the puzzle that we're bringing to you to further develop that. And somewhere in the near future, once we get this underway, we will also bring to you a marketing plan of how to sell that property and hopefully recoup some of our investment into that area.
And while you said that, I want to make a comment about feasibility studies. We have a really good track record with feasibility studies. And sometimes people wonder why we spend money on them. But if you go back in recent history and you talk about the feasibility studies that we have chosen to be a part of funding or funding completely, we did a feasibility study for a sports complex. And we have a grand opening for a sports complex here in just a few weeks. We did a feasibility study for a conference center. And later on this year or early next year, we'll have a groundbreaking for a new conference center. We did a feasibility study for a downtown hotel. And it was publicly announced a few weeks ago that somebody is going to remodel the Soper building and bring in a downtown hotel. And now we have approved the expansion of that specific feasibility study to include other hotel properties. And the reason we do that is because we have advanced conversations that are not public yet, but it's definitely an indication of interest in us proceeding with a project or someone who has interest in our community. So when you see us looking at feasibility studies, I just want to let you know that there's a good reason why we do those. And a lot of times they're requested by the people who might be bringing things to our community. So any other questions or comments? Have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Hargis?
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt?
Aye.
Commissioner Witt?
Aye.
Mayor Staten?
Aye. Next up, we have a municipal order approving general warranty deed.
Municipal Order 12-25, municipal order approving general warranty deed, real estate mortgage, and promissory note for property located on Old Cordon Road between the City of Henderson, Kentucky and Pratt Properties 2, LLC, and authorizing the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Motion to approve, please.
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions, or suggestions?
I have one comment for Commissioner Hargis. Again, we trying to educate you. Several years ago, the city of Henderson, along with Henderson Water Utility, acquired a tract of land formerly known as the Pritchett Farm, and the purpose was to attract Pratt Industries to Henderson. And as Mayor previously said, we've done investments in acquiring services and property to further enhance our community. And this is one of those situations where we purchased, I've got to think, it could have been a 300-acre farm. Pratt ended up taking 200 of it, and then we had 100 left over. And part of the deal is Pratt took an option on the property, which is something Dawn will explain to you where we are today with that option. But the bottom line is that investment that we originally made in that property was close to $5 million. We will end up getting some of that money back through this option. So Dawn, if you don't mind.
Sure. The option was just that, it was a 10-year option, so that if in 10 years they wanted to purchase the property, we had the price set for them. But if someone came and offered us that amount in 10 years, they had the first right of refusal as well. So Pratt has come to us and they are interested in going ahead and purchasing the property, but asking it through economic development over a series of payments rather than one. So that's what we're
Good deal. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hargis?
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt?
Aye.
Commissioner Witt?
Aye.
Mayor Staten?
Aye. Next up, we have a municipal order approving contracts for debris management.
Municipal Order number 13-25, municipal order approving contract for debris management services in the City of Henderson and Crowder Gulf LLC, and authorizing the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
I have a motion to approve, please.
Moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do you want to discuss now, or do you want to discuss in the city manager report the debris?
I want to explain why we're entering into this agreement, and I will give an update under the city manager's report on our debris cleanup. What's before you today is more or less an agreement to provide services during emergency disaster situations. At our last meeting, the mayor has asked staff to come up with a emergency response plan, of which this would be part of that plan, that we can call on companies such as this in the event that, such as California, for example, is going through major issues, and we want to have the ability to go to a company that has the financial and equipment support to come in if we had a massive tornado, that we can call them and they can mobilize as soon as possible. Now, the other thing that I want to bring up right now that's important for y'all to know, that while if you approve this contract agreement, that we can utilize it for our storm debris cleanup from the ice storm. I do want to say to y'all, we have yet to receive a presidential declaration for Kentucky being a disaster. So right now in question, and I'll get into a little bit further later, but the question's going to be either we do or either we don't get the disaster declaredness. So as we prepare to go forward with anything we do as far as cleanup, we will follow the FEMA guidelines. But we're also prepared to tell you today that if we don't get it, how are we going to pay for the cleanup? So that's where we are, and I'll get into it a little bit deeper, but this is just really an agreement to use possibly now, but also going forward. It's a more important item for y'all to know that we're getting more prepared than less prepared.
Right. Any other questions or comments? Kelsey Dunham, want to come up to the podium? You're a natural fit either here or at the later, and we'll go ahead and include you now.
Okay.
Before we vote on this specific issue regarding a contract for debris cleanup, can you give us a little update on what's going on with United Way and the efforts that you all have taken on to help service people for their debris cleanup?
Absolutely. So we started with the city, county, EMA, and a little bit of everyone a couple of weeks ago after the storm to talk about what we wanted to do to try to help everyone get cleaned up. Luckily, a lot of people weren't too affected, but a lot of us were. And so we have partnered with Crisis Cleanup. It's a nonprofit that has a platform that manages all sorts of incoming calls for debris cleanup. And it connects certified, insured groups with those that need some help getting cleaned up. So right now, we have had 7 phone volunteers taking over 100 calls. It's right at 110 now, and we actually, so I was checking, we have about 6 pending. With that, we have 79 open cases, meaning we have 79 requests for assistance getting all the debris cleaned up. So whether that's, for some folks, it could be a couple limbs that they don't have the ability to move themselves. They're elderly. We've had so many calls, recent surgeries, health issues, can't do it themselves. We've had, so the 79 cases are open right now, but like I said, we already have calls pending. We will have this hotline open until Friday, January 31st at 8 p.m. After that, we will, of course, answer any calls that come in that we didn't catch on Friday, but after that, we will not be able to take any more requests through that hotline. We do have 2 confirmed cleanup groups. We have right now working as we speak. We have the Kentucky Disaster Relief through the Southern Baptist Convention. They are working all of this week and very likely going into next week to do those jobs that they can handle. And they have already completed about 20 jobs. So that's a great effort on their part. We have another group coming in later this week, early next week, Christian Aid Ministries. They are still working out the timeline, but they have larger scale equipment. So friends that have dangling limbs, larger trees, that's a huge expense for a lot of families in Henderson. So this group is coming in to help with that. We have made a goal, just so we are aware, like you said, we don't have a set cleanup for the city yet, but we have set an internal goal with our groups coming in that we want the city to have the debris cleaned up by February 10th. And that way we just have our volunteers with that goal in mind. In the county, we have the completion goal of March 3rd, And with the county, we're putting it in burn piles or loading it onto personal trailers, trucks for them to haul off at their leisure. I know you guys were talking about money. And so right now, the estimated value of the services that our volunteers are providing, as well as the work being done, is $202,700. So I have reached out to Crisis Cleanup, that platform, to see how they calculate that, but that's based off of the damage, the photos being uploaded by residents asking for assistance, as well as volunteers putting in their hours.
And how much money have our residents had to pay toward that over $200,000 figure?
$0. Nobody is having to pay anything for this. The platform is free for us to use. The volunteers are free. They are an incredible group to work with. If anyone wants to come see them, they're usually at our office about 8:30 in the morning, and then they come back for lunch. So we would love to see you all, sit down, talk with them. I know a couple of people have already spoke with groups. Commissioner Pruitt has. They were very excited to come back and say that they talked, and you got a few friends in your area getting some cleanup, right?
Yes, there's a lady, I think she's about 87.
Mm-hmm.
Our backyard looks like a war zone. She called me and she said, I don't know what to do. Ollie had given me the information I didn't know, and I made the call, and a day later they were there signing papers and getting it all set up for her to take care of yard. I thank you.
Yes. So, like he said, they did sign papers. So each group has their own liability forms. The liability's not on city, county, United Way, EMA, nothing. These are groups that have their own waivers. So they are bringing those and having residents sign and helping them get that work done.
It's a fantastic service, and thank you for helping to
Yes,
coordinate that.
absolutely.
Because in 2009, I don't think we had any groups doing that.
I don't think we did either. I think this is
thought
really.
Everybody was on their own, you know.
And it was horrible that we had an ice storm, but we hope to never have to use this ever again, but this is a great way for us to kind of get a plan together if something larger scale were to happen, so.
And I love the fact that as our community is learning how to navigate in the wake of a storm like this, we're learning very efficiently and effectively in providing our community with lots of value-added services. Thank you so much.
As much as we want to do everything tomorrow, we know it's a little bit longer term. So thank you for your patience. We're happy to get it up. And as we go through on this platform, we can see photos before and after, things like that. So we'll have a more descriptive database results out of the cleanup and everything after we get to that point.
If possible, when it's over with, could we get the guys to come in, and we just want to give them our thanks in person.
Yeah. So the group coming up later this week, early next week, they're out of Marion. They reached out to us to thank us. Like they said, hey, we'll come up here because of what all you guys did for Dawson Springs. The other group, some of them are from Henderson, so yeah, we'll be sure to let them know. And
Thank you.
they'll feel free to come by the office anytime just to see them, say hey. They pop in and out throughout the day. So our doors are pretty much always open, but especially right now for you guys to come in and see these groups.
Good deal. Any other questions or comments for Kelsey?
Good work.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, good work.
Yeah. Thank you. And I can't stress enough, this hotline closes at 8 p.m. on Friday.
Yes. If we don't answer your call on Friday, we will call you back, but after 8 p.m., you won't be able to make any more calls.
So if you're hearing this message and you know people, please get that information to them in a timely fashion.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So, Mayor, maybe while we are all here and talking about this, and I bring it back up, but let me just tell you where we are today.
Sure. It's city manager report time anyway. So.
Well, y'all got to vote on
Oh,
this.
wait. You want us to vote now?
Why don't you vote?
Yeah.
and then I'll
Okay.
vote.
Okay. Roll call, please, on that vote.
Commissioner Hargis? Aye. Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt?
Aye.
Witt?
Aye.
Mayor Staten?
Aye. City manager report.
So to finish the conversation, and as she just stated, United Way and EMA have been very instrumental in helping our citizens to get their properties cleaned up and get the debris to curbside. So if you've driven around the community, you know that you're seeing large piles of debris. So it is the city's intent going forward to begin the debris pickup by February 17th.
Again,
The
debris pickup.
That's correct.
Yes.
And in conjunction with Brian Williams and his staff, We will come up with a plan that we will share with y'all before that occurs. We will also push it out on social media. But what's key to the cleanup is we will make one run through the community to do a massive cleanup. And then there will be follow-up for those that say, hey, I missed the pickup, or what we don't get picked up through a contractor, we will have to finish it ourselves. Now, with that being said, this is an effort by Public Works that, again, y'all recognize them earlier today for all their work. Well, their work's just beginning. This probably will take every bit of a month to accomplish. It's a massive undertaking. It involves the water utilities providing the property in which to dispose of the material. We had to work with the state of Kentucky to get permitting to take the debris there. We will have to work with the Division of Air on the burning of the material once we get there. I also want to say that as we look at getting closer to that target date, we know that this debris continues to mount, and you're going to get phone calls as to when are you going to pick it up. Everything has a reason for sequencing, just as Kelsey said. She's cutting the last date for them is February the 10th. We will start a week later. We will run through mid-March. Now, we hope by end of March that we get it all cleaned up, okay? So, as I stated earlier, one thing y'all have to realize that in contact with Kenny Garrett today, he says that the state of Kentucky is going to make the request of FEMA sometime this week. Typically, it takes presidential declaration in order for FEMA to come in. Okay, and as I stated to y'all, we're approaching this and documenting this as if we are going to get reimbursement. But should we not get the declaration, we have to be prepared to take care of our community out of our own pocket. Much of which why we always keep cash reserves for disasters such as this to manage it. And as Kelsey said earlier, just private property alone is $200,000. I can only guess right now our cost could be anywhere between $300,000 and $500,000. I know that Hempel's out-of-pocket expense right now is over $1 million. So it's a significant amount of money. But again, as we all prepare for events like this, you can't totally prepare for them. You do the best you can, but hopefully the next event that comes will be in a little better shape. But the point I'm getting to, it's a financial responsibility too. So as we progress through this, we will keep y'all abreast where we are. I like to target maximum out-of-pocket expense of $250,000. If we believe it's going to run more than that, we will be back to inform you of where we are at pending FEMA's decision.
And we don't need an official motion today to that regard, but I'm assuming I know the answer to this question, but just to make it official, can we all give an indication of interest to allow Buzzy to move forward with the cleanup efforts regardless of if we get reimbursed? Commissioner Thomas?
Yes, absolutely.
Commissioner Witt?
Yes.
Commissioner Pruitt?
Yes.
Commissioner Hargis? You're good to go, sir.
Thank you.
You have three other items?
Yes, I do. But most of them are going to involve Dylan and Trace. But right now, Trace, you're number one on the list. Do you mind to give a brief overview of staffing for the upcoming swimming pool season?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, the weather outside makes you think of swimming pools. So that's what we're here to talk about today, the 2025 swim season. Last year, the 2024 swim season was successful. We opened on Memorial Day. We actually went a week past our anticipated closing day. Traditionally, the Atkinson Park pool closes the second week of August in conjunction with the reopening of Henderson County schools. We traditionally do that due to the fact that all of our I won't say all, 90% of our lifeguards are high school students. This year we've been tasked with making sure that for the 2025 season, we extend our swim season to a more traditional Memorial Day to Labor Day swim season, with the idea that when the school starts in the second week of August, we transition to a weekend-only session because obviously kids being in school until 3 o'clock. Our swim season starts May, and we go from 11 a.m. to 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Tuesday through Saturday, and then on Sundays 1 to 6. So with that in mind and the big change and all of the new recruitment that we'll need for additional staff and some of those things, we've come up with some ideas, some plans that we're going to inform the commission on. Some of them will require commission action in the future to adjust staffing levels and things of that nature, but some of them are just for your benefit, so you'll know what's going on if you see or hear in the community what the park's doing with the pools. The first thing, traditionally, what we're going to be doing is switching our staffing hours, the shift that our lifeguards and our cashiers work. Traditionally, our lifeguards come in for a full day shift. You'll start, pool opens at 11, so you show up at 10:30, 10:45. Pool closes at 6. Helping with cleanup, you get done 6:15, 6:30. Then you work that entire day. This year, we're going to try something a little different, something we've never done before, and we're going to work shorter shifts. Instead of having a single day shift, we're going to work with a morning shift and an evening shift, or a morning shift and an afternoon shift. That will hopefully give our lifeguards and our other staff the flexibility if they have, I'm coming up with examples off the top of my head, I don't know if they're accurate, football conditioning in the morning, you can still work a pool shift after lunch. If you've got volleyball camp that takes place from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, you can still work the morning shift at the pool, that 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift. And instead of instead of a guard asking for an entire day off, they can work their schedule around their shifts, their extracurriculars, their preps for school, and all of those, doctor's visits, dentist visits, and all those other things that had been requiring them to take a whole day off. Now they can still work a day. With that in mind, we're going to ask, and this is one of the things that would require approval in the future, additional guards, additional cashiers, and additional senior guards. While we're asking for additional staffing levels or higher staffing levels, we don't anticipate we will be using any more guards or working any additional hours. We're just going to have a larger pool of lifeguards to pull from to fill those 2 shifts during the day instead of the 1 shift during the day. Our hope is that we can fill these slots. We can recruit these lifeguards and these cashiers. I know in the past that's been a big challenge for us. We're looking at different ways, which brings us up to our next one, to get these lifeguards in-house. We've already started recruiting. We've already started offering lifeguard classes with the Y. We're currently on our 2nd lifeguard class with the Y, and we're offering them monthly all throughout the rest of the year until we start the pool. We're offering classes that are weekend-only classes. We're offering classes that are weekday evening classes. So we're trying to be as flexible as possible and offer as many options. This is all working in conjunction with the YMCA on these lifeguard classes to make sure we can recruit as many guards and staff as possible. One of the things that we're also working on, we are trying new methods of recruitment. In the past, we've put out the ads in the newspaper. We're doing social media ads as we've always done. We're looking at doing different types of advertising. We're doing ads at the pool right now. We've got banners up at the pool. If you've driven past the water feature, you'll see a banner on the fence at the water feature giving ideas, QR codes that allow for staff to quickly, or interested parties to quickly scan it and go straight to the application, as opposed to trying to entice kids to call or something like that, or to come in and pick up a paper application. A second thing that we're trying to do to encourage lifeguards to stay throughout the year is last year the commission was generous enough to increase the pay for cashiers. The year before that, they were generous enough to increase the pay for lifeguards. This year, we're asking for shift differential pay. That shift differential would take place after that August start date when most of our kids drop out of the pool, resign due to school activities and things like that, to work those 2 or 3 weekends and to get you through that August to that September Labor Day. So we're hoping that perhaps that with the shift differential for those staff that choose to work the weekends in August and the Labor Day weekend, that we can entice at least enough staff to come to allow us to open the pool safely during them. So we've got all of that in mind. When we're asking for the increase in staffing, we're almost asking to double it. Since we're cutting our shift in half, our shift time in half and doubling the amount of shifts, we're asking for double the pool of lifeguards while maintaining the same number of hours we're going to work the lifeguards. So while it seems like we're asking for a staff increase, we're not asking for an expense increase in payroll.
Hey, people, 3 weeks after school starts, what's our average attendance?
We don't have that idea, because normally we close. Normally Atkinson Pool closes usually the day before school starts. I think, I don't remember the exact dates, but if school starts August the 8th, the last day for the Atkinson Pool would have been August the 7th. No, we don't.
Based on, you said going to the 4-hour thing, what if you got a lifeguard that really wants to work the whole day? Would they be allowed?
Yes. When you're choosing the shift, if you need to choose that, I've got to be out the afternoon, you can do that. If you have a free day or you're particularly interested in earning money for school, cars, pizza, whatever you choose to spend the money on, yes, you can work 2 shifts back to back, which would be the morning and the afternoon.
Deal. Thanks, sir. Can I ask you to comment on one other thing while you're up here, separate from the conversation we just had?
Sure.
Want to thank you, first of all, for all the efforts that you're doing. And it'll be a learning experience, keeping it open through Labor Day.
Yeah, I just want to see the numbers.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we'll know this year how that has. A lot of times we have people call. I have people call every year asking why we're closing early and stuff like that. And so this year we'll be able to see. Second of all, starting to get some questions about rebuilding our community tree pool. In terms of we had a lot of trees that were damaged, and can you speak to that and what plans the
Yes.
Parks Department might have in all that?
Sure. Traditionally, we replant trees on an annual basis, and we base that number on the number of trees we cut down. We try to replace 2 new trees for every tree we remove due to age, damage, whatever happens to them. This year, obviously, we're in a little bit of a different circumstance. We anticipate losing a significantly larger number of trees than we do normally. The trees that we currently have damaged, actually on Friday, we've got a representative from the Kentucky Department of Forestry coming down to perform risk assessments on our damaged trees. That'll give us a much better idea of the trees that may not look great but will heal given time and attention versus the trees that need to be removed because they cause a risk to the public from further damage or further limbs falling. So after we know that, we'll get a number of trees. We traditionally incorporate our planting plans into the fall when we plant all of our trees. So if we take trees down, there may be some, for lack of a better term, bald spots in our tree canopy until we get to the fall and we're allowed to, when we start planting as weather allows.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
One comment I think we all missed is I think the Parks Department was not recognized during the storm event. And I will tell you, if you drive by Atkinson Park, it's been a massive undertaking to clean up just Atkinson Park. And I think y'all should be recognized for the job well done. And it goes above and beyond what they normally do. So thank you, Chris,
thank
for
you.
sitting back there.
I was going to say, we have Chris Stakowitz, who's our Parks and Recreation Superintendent. He's the man in charge of the parks crews. They were taking down hangers, they were moving fallen limbs, they were piling all of that stuff up on the road. And then we've got James Gordon back there. He's our recreation program manager when it comes to the pool stuff. He's the boots on the ground. He's the guy that's actually maintaining water chemistry, fielding lifeguards' questions down at the pool when they have questions or unruly patrons. He's the one that gets to interact with those individuals.
I'm so sorry we missed that opportunity earlier, but thank you guys very much. We
No,
appreciate
it's no problem. It's what we do. Parks Department handles the parks. We handle the trees in the parks and in the right-of-ways. Elm Street took a hit. All of our parks took a hit. We'll do the best we can to clean it up. We will make sure that it's safe for all of our patrons to come in and use our parks. And then as fall comes, we'll do our best to replant so that we can keep our community covered in trees, our canopy secure and solid so that we can have shade and nice looking parks. Before I go, I do have some calendars. The Parks Department printed annual calendars. I'll give one to each commissioner.
All right, I need a calendar.
Thank you.
Oh, seriously, I need a calendar.
Thank you.
The calendar.
You gave me one. Thank you.
Thank you.
The calendar contains all of our activity dates in it, so if you need to know when the Easter egg hunt is, it's in there. If you need to know when the Halloween extravaganza is, it's in there. If you need any of that other information, we've got all of that stuff there printed. So we're trying to just do a little bit. We're giving some out to some patrons. We had a fairly limited run of them, but I think they turned out well. The pictures were all taken by staff. They're all local parks, so enjoy.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
So Mayor, for brevity reasons,
Uh-huh.
Dylan, can you come up and let's close the city manager report
I see what you did there.
with the sports complex and the parks master, and then we'll save Holly for last.
Mine'll be, these next two should be quick. Much quicker than the last one, which isn't saying much, but, so on the sports complex update, really what this is when we bid the project and you all approved the contract ARC Construction, the original contract was $10 million and some change, and through some change orders, it went up to about 14 or 15. Well, as part of that original base contract that you all approved, there were certain allowances in the contract. There was, $250,000 for soil stabilization allowance, $50,000 for contingency allowance, $45,000 for landscaping allowance, and then $45,000 for pitching mounds allowance. So what an allowance basically is it's just a placeholder in the bid. So basically we said, okay, the bid is this, but as part of that bid, there's allowances in there for us to spend on these items as we get more information. So basically what we're requesting now is we did use, in some cases, we used the full allowance, even more than some of the allowance, and in other cases, we used only a small amount of the allowance. And so basically, as we've been wrapping up this project, we haven't brought every item before, every small item before you all. Some of them have been small, some have been larger. And so ultimately what we're looking for, there were additional sidewalks we needed to do, there was additional conduit, there were some credits in there. What else do we have? We had the batting cage, for example. When we upgraded all the fields to turf, the batting cage still had infill. So we didn't feel like it was a good thing to have that be the only place in the complex that had the dirt infill, so we upgraded it to turf. So there were a lot of value add things that we did, and so basically all what we're doing is looking for a nod of approval to basically use the remaining of that allowance on things that we needed to do for the sports complex and just apply it towards those allowances, even though the allowances, the soil stabilization allowance, we use some of it for soil stabilization, but we also want to use some of it for these other items. So there's not a contract dollar change, and actually we'll be coming back in the future for a reduction in the contract amount because we do have one large credit coming to us for what we did for the 2 extra fields, removing the sod and irrigation. So that's essentially what it is. We're just looking for the nod of approval to spend those allowances on these other items that are not directly tied to what the allowance was called for originally.
All right, so I'm gonna call on each of you, but as I do, if you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to ask them. But if you agree with allowing him to use the budgeted amount that's already in the budget for literally 20 to 30 other
there's
other line items that you want to get
probably.
accomplished, please say yes. If you don't agree with that, please say no, and that will give him an indication of interest. And we'll start with Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Witt.
No questions, yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Harkins. Yes, and me as I am a yes also, so that was very easy. Especially when you mentioned you're going to bring us back a contract reduction, that's music to our ears.
So one thing I would ask you to do, once you do this cleanup, I would recommend you bring back an accounting how you spend any of the allowance money so they know.
I can do that. When we bring the final change order, which should be the final change order, I will bring a list of those as well.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Neil.
sir.
Favorite Move on to the next item.
You have, oh, wait, are we, oh, so Dylan's gonna stay up and do his
Well,
items
yeah.
and then Holly at the last?
Then
Okay,
Holly.
there we go, there we
So
go.
this is a follow-up to the park, and I'll talk while I'm passing this out. This is a follow-up to the parks master plan. Basically, and you heard Pat talk about it with Brand Center Carroll, we need to establish a parks master plan steering committee. Roughly, it would entail a meeting every month or two, up to 6 or 7 meetings where we would, basically, this would be the committee that Brand Center Carroll would quote-unquote report to in a more formal setting. City staff would be there to continue to direct, but we need a steering committee that'll kind of make decisions and that sort of thing. So all you have in front of you is just a proposed list. This is something that I discussed with the city manager, the mayor, staff, and Brand Center Carroll. For the audience, I will just read this really quick. This is up for discussion and any amendments that you all would like to make. But Dawn, I don't know if you want to speak to just the formality of.
So, under the UK case, when a commission appoints an official committee, then it becomes a committee that falls under open meetings. So, all of the meetings that will happen with the steering committee will be open meetings, and Jessa will notice.
Yeah. Thank you. So what I have here, this is just what we had proposed. It's subject to whatever amendments you all want to make, but we had 1 representative from the Board of Commissioners, 2 representatives from the Parks Board, 1 representative from Henderson County Schools, 1 from Henderson County Fiscal Court, 1 staff member from the Planning Commission, 1 representative from the Henderson Tourist Commission, 1 representative from the Sports Facilities Company, which is the contract we just signed, 1 student or youth representative, and then city staff would include city manager, assistant city manager, parks director, project manager, and project coordinator for a total of 14 members.
So the first question I have is, does anyone see a need to add or remove any specific titles, members from this committee?
Only thought, I don't feel necessarily strongly about it, is if we have 1 like student youth representative, somebody at large from the adult. I don't know what I mean by youth. You mean somebody under 18 and should.
That's kind of what I was thinking was a school student. Yeah.
I don't know if we would add a person in the community that is on any of these, so you could have representation. Somebody that's a youth, somebody that's perhaps a little older, or not tied to any of these other groups.
I'm not opposed to it.
What about the vision plan committee, which, to be honest with you, was sort of an open committee, but you go back in time, as he said earlier today, a lot of this came out of that vision committee, so maybe finding someone that's been a placeholder since day one, that could be a good source to go to.
So whenever you're, what, do you want to put that in the form of a motion, since we're designing a structured committee?
Yeah, sure. I guess I would make the motion to add 1 member to the Parks Master Plan Steering Committee that is just a community at large representative.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hargis? Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt?
Aye.
Commissioner Witt?
Aye.
Aye. Next question I have in relation to this same topic, is there a member of the Board of Commissioners who would like to sit on this specific committee? And we do not have to decide today, but we probably need to make that decision by our next meeting. And so rather than put you on the spot and or whatever, if any of you are interested in serving on that committee, please let me know. And then at our next meeting, we'll make a motion and make that happen. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you all.
Did you, do you want to discuss Hart or sidewalks while you're up there? Keep you up there, and we'll do Holly and Truly
I'm
last?
going to let our project coordinator, Jeannie, take care of, and the hard issue.
Okay, so the sidewalks.
Okay, so we are asking for approval from the commission to apply for a RAISE grant. And the RAISE grant stands for Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. And with this grant, it's fully funded federally, so there would be no local match. But it would address us having an ADA transition plan, which would identify sidewalks, curbs, anything that needs, that's non-ADA compliant so that we can plan how to address those barriers.
Sorry, go ahead.
Deadline for application is
It's on Thursday.
January 30th.
Yes.
So what we would do, if y'all
Is
would
it like
give
2 days?
approval to apply, we would come back at our next regular meeting and solidify the application process.
Yeah, free money?
Yeah, and it's for, I don't know if you all ever get calls about it, but it's for a good cause. I mean, they're basically going to analyze our sidewalks, see where the deficiencies are, and develop a plan for remediating any deficiencies in the sidewalks. And then we'll have to discuss later on how to implement that plan. But I think it's good. We don't need an official motion, do we? Just kind of a head nod.
Concurrence.
Yeah. I don't have to ask them. I already saw the head nod, so we
Okay.
should be good to go.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. And is this the last thing? So this is
It's
Holly?
Ms. Holly.
Okay, so what we're doing now is Holly is going to present to us just the results of the vote tallies for the inner city improvement plan for this past year.
Oh, wait,
And,
I reversed it. Sorry.
and all we are doing today is just learning about what the vote totals were. And what will happen between now and next meeting is that Buzzy and I will put together a preliminary starter budget from the allocation of funds, and we'll bring it back to the commission. Everybody will have a chance to review it, weigh in with their decisions. We'll make changes to that budget as needed, and then move forward with that budget. Holly?
Yes, so the paper that you have in front of you, as he stated, has the projects that came out of the 2024 Inner City Improvement Plan. They start with the project that received the most votes down to the project that received the least number of votes. We did have 135 people that casted their votes throughout the process. The vote totals will be higher because each voter was given 3 stickers to vote. So voting took place over 4 days. That was something different that we introduced for 2024. Not only were folks able to vote at the community meeting, we extended that to the JFK Center and a couple of days at Audubon Kids Zone. So I guess something interesting really about this year, we didn't have one committee that really dominated the vote. In past years, it's usually, I think last year was public safety, that we saw a lot of the projects come out of. But if you look at the top 5 projects for 2024, all 5 committees are well represented.
Good deal. And this is something that we will take home with us and take some time to digest at our leisure. And then, like I said, we're going to take this, take into account the total number of votes, the priority, and all those things. If between now and next meeting, as you're looking at this list, you see any projects that might be toward the bottom of the list that you're specifically wanting to tackle, please let us know so that we make a budget allocation for it. And then we'll bring the budget back for next meeting to discuss at the 11th meeting in February. Any questions or comments for Holly? Thank you, ma'am. Yes,
One other
ma'am.
thing I will add, going into the 2025 program, there will be a little bit of a change in the management of the program. I've overseen the program for 23 and 24, and for 2025, we're going to be transitioning that to our project coordinator, Jeannie. So just a heads up there.
Good deal. We've already had preliminary meetings. We've already started the design for the committees. The preliminary date for orientation, what was that, March the 4th, is that right? Or is it the 6th? I can't remember. We'll have to look at it. It'll be the first week of March, the 4th. So we're heading toward that. We'll have a public rollout throughout the month of February, and we've already had a large amount of people from the inner city who have expressed interest in serving this year. We do have need for a brief executive session. Are we going to come back with any action,
Yes.
Dawn? Okay, we will come back with action. Before we go into the executive session, I want to get the commissioner comments out of the way. Commissioner Pruitt, do you have anything today? Commissioner Thomas? Commissioner Witt? No. All right. We have need for executive session?
Kelsey, will you?
I move that the commission go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.81, 0, paragraph 1, subsection C, for discussion of pending litigation on behalf of the city of Henderson.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. We are going to be in executive session. We're staying in this room. All right. Are we on verbal? We're good? Need a motion to come out of executive session, please?
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
We are back in a regular session, and we have a resolution that needs to be read, please.
Resolution number 12-25, resolution authorizing the mayor to execute all settlement participation forms for benefits pursuant to a settlement agreement between the Kroger Company and the Commonwealth of Kentucky on the opioid.
We have a motion to approve, please. Do we have a second?
Second.
Comments, questions? Roll call.
Commissioner Vargas, Commissioner Thomas,
Aye.
Pruitt,
Aye.
Commissioner Witt,
Aye.
Mayor State.
Aye. Need a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. We are.